Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes. We look at theories of everything that have inspired me over the years. Cosmologies, all-encompassing theories, things that you can hang your hat on, things that can ground you and provide you with answers no matter what questions you ask. And today is our fifth video that we're doing on Daniel Ingram's book, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha. And this is a kind of a compendium of a person who has spent a lot of time in Buddhist monasteries in the Far East, and has brought back a great deal of wisdom and put it into our language so that we might be able to understand what these people, this ancient tradition, has been talking about. And also to help us kind of shore up our Western traditions, which have been infiltrated by psyops, and our scriptures have been debased by the ruling class, the cabals, from all the way back from ancient times, who have used these things to manipulate us. In spite of all that, our traditions have managed to intuit the proper morality, the proper ethics, not necessarily as deep as what he's going here, especially in terms of meditation and procedure, and in terms of the maps of the mind and spirit. But at least many of our ethics, I think, are still relatively accurate, in spite of the fact that the Romans and the Anunnaki have dictated most of our holy books here in the West. So right now we are in the second chapter, and I think I got cut off in the middle of a paragraph last time, so we'll go back to the beginning of this paragraph and then move along. One pitfall that must be addressed here, however, since it is so common, is guilt. We in the West have grown up in a relatively privileged culture in which we can be extremely hard on ourselves, causing ourselves to staggering amounts of pain to little good effect. If we can learn to substitute wise remorse, which simply says, well, that didn't work, and that is unfortunate. I will try my best to figure out why and hopefully do something better next time. We will be much better able to train successfully in living a good and useful life. Some people, unfortunately, seem to think that the primary message of training in morality is that they should continuously cultivate the feeling that they have taken up a heavy yoke of responsibility and self-oppression. In fact, some people seem to revel in that unfortunate feeling. The more fortunate will think, quote, "It is so much fun to try to live a good, healthy, and useful life. What a joy it is to find creative ways to do this." There are few things more helpful on the spiritual path and for life in general than a positive attitude. Thus, the related and all too common pitfall is that people stop having fun, stop having a sense of humor, a definite red flag of something gone awry, if you ask me, and stop trying to be successful in worldly terms. There is absolutely no reason for this. Well, I would say there are reasons for it, but maybe this isn't reasonable. But the reason for it is that our Savior tells us to do that. So, if you can have fun in healthy ways, have fun. It's not just for breakfast anymore. Also, success is highly recommended for obvious reasons. Pick a flexible vision of success in the ordinary sense for yourself and go for it. Play to win. This is your life, so make it a great one. There is no reason not to try, as long as you can do so in a kind and compassionate way. The basic spirit is that these trainings are fun, a magnificent adventure in learning and growing, a remarkable opportunity to have many fascinating and transformative experiences, a wonderful experiment in what is possible in this life. These attitudes make a huge difference in all the trainings we will discuss here. One more great thing about training in morality is that it is indispensable for the next training, concentration. So, here's a tip if you are finding it hard to concentrate because your mind is filled with guilt, judgment, hatred, resentment, envy, or some other harmful or difficult thought pattern. Work on the first training. It will be time well spent. Further, if and when you start doing more intensive training, you will very quickly realize that whatever good mental and psychological habits you have will be a great support, and whatever unskilled mental habits you bring will definitely slow you down or even stop you. Do spend your non-retreat time cultivating a healthy mind, a healthy body, and a skillful and mature set of coping mechanisms. I was on a retreat in 2003 with a mighty meditation master named Sayadaw U Pandita Jr., so named to differentiate him from the late meditation master Sayadaw U Pandita, who was a senior monk and one of Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw's direct ancestors, or direct successors, and author of such classic books as In This Very Life and On the Path to Freedom, both of which I recommend. The former gave a long talk on the Pali word danta, meaning tamed or restrained. He explained it as carrying the qualities of being poised, dignified, and stable. Restrained means refraining from ill-conceived or harmful to oneself and others actions of body, speech, and mind. Practicing with a sense of ourselves as being dignified, mature, capable, balanced, poised, steady, and able to be comfortable in our own skin while doing simple things like sitting and walking. This way of working and seeing yourself is of great benefit all around. So, we now have a good and quite large list of things to work on, and so begins the list of the axes of development. I used to play a game called Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, and it was, and still is, a fantasy role-playing game in which we take on the role of a character who has specific attributes. In the old version of the game that I played, player characters would have various degrees of strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma, with standard humans having values for each of those ranging from 3 to 18, with 3 being the lowest possible and 18 being as high as humans could normally achieve. For instance, were I to have a character with the following attributes: strength 13, intelligence 18, wisdom 9, dexterity 17, constitution 11, and charisma 4, I would be very smart, not very wise, quite dexterous, extremely uncharismatic, and average in other factors. Just because a character had developed one of these qualities didn't mean the others were well developed. In Dungeons and Dragons, these qualities were generally fixed entities unless something unusual happened. However, in the game we are playing in the real world, we assume that the various qualities we wish to develop are not fixed qualities that we can't improve on, but instead can definitely be cultivated and improved upon, perhaps beyond what we ever imagined. Thus, were we to draw up a character sheet for our progress in the 3 trainings in their various complicated aspects and track them over time, we might notice that various abilities improved with time in some generally upward trend as we gave them attention, realizing that the inevitable declines and setbacks that come with time may happen as well. So let's say we wanted to create the part of our own character sheet that dealt with some very simplified axes of development of the vast training of morality. We might come up with something that looks like this: kindness toward ourselves, kindness toward others, both humans and non-humans, ability to set and respect reasonable boundaries, written communication ability, spoken communication ability, ability to skillfully support ourselves, ability to skillfully support others, generosity, patience, gratitude, persistence, honesty, integrity, dedication to service, ability to pace ourselves to work up to our potential without burning out, support of physical health, which we might break down further into diet, exercise, sleep, etc. Academic development, intellectual understanding of models of healthy human development, emotional maturity, development of ethics, sense of humor, intellectual curiosity, enjoyment of learning, common sense, skillful relationships with people, skillful relationships to mind-altering substances, skillful relationships to power, skillful relationship to sexuality, skillful relationship to money and possessions, skillful relationship to politics, skillful relationship to our spiritual achievements and less developed areas, etc. The list I have come up with is very arbitrary and woefully incomplete, and is meant to serve as a general example of a concept, not a definitive guide. And I would encourage you to take time to consider what your own list would look like and how you have done over the years, as well as what you aspire to in the future, since explicit goals and frameworks help galvanize and direct energy for progress. A point that will be repeated in this book is that success in one of these areas doesn't guarantee success in the others. And what one person considers success, someone else might not. For example, an aid worker in some war-torn refugee camp and a politics-renouncing solitary hermit might hold different opinions on how best to use their time to help save all beings. This is an essential concept when it comes to all these trainings and axes of development that is often not well understood. Just because you may be strong in one developmental skill set doesn't necessarily translate into being strong in the others. Just because you have developed one to a degree and in a way that suits your ideals doesn't mean anyone else will hold that view. Too often, models of spirituality assume that just because you have one practice or skill down, that you will necessarily have some others, what I call the package models. While there are some examples of people who do get packages of benefits that arrive together, there are just as many exceptions to those rules. While learning specific things can help us learn related things more easily, such as people who play the violin well might be able to more quickly pick up guitar or cello, plenty of skill sets don't translate to other areas of our life. This applies not only to you, but also to your Dharma companions, teachers, etc. The most common example of relevance is that just because someone may speak well, look good, be well educated, be a Dharma scholar, or even have strong meditative abilities, doesn't mean they will necessarily have such things as good interpersonal and communication skills, or skillful relationships with power, money, or sex. I talk about this more later. In the meantime, it is time to move on to a discussion of the second training, concentration. Okay, now we're moving into chapter 3, which is called concentration, the second training. And just keep in mind that the first training then is morality. Second training is concentration. And the third training is wisdom. And the first training, morality, is done in your, day-to-day life. Concentration is a process of meditation on focusing on one object. And wisdom is cultivated through insight meditation, or vipassana, which is really concentration on all 6 of your sense doors, your 5 senses, and your mind, your thoughts, and being ready to notice everything that's coming in from all of those different sources. He explains it a lot better than that, but I'm just trying to, just remind on the way so that we kind of keep in mind the larger picture. Okay, concentration, the second training. Concentration is the ability to steady the mind on whatever you wish and attain unusual and profound altered states of consciousness. Training in concentration relates to formal meditation practice, though some of these states can arise spontaneously during other activities. The second training is also called training in samadhi, meaning depths of meditation, or sometimes samatha in Pali, or shamatha in Sanskrit practice. The word samadhi is used differently in various traditions, with the Theravada using it as a mere equivalent of shamatha, but some traditions, such as some of the Indian Vedantic traditions and some of the Mahayana traditions, use it to describe high states of realization and extremely high levels of deep concentration. So please be careful when using the word samadhi, and be aware when reading it that it can mean very different things to different authors. My apologies in advance for people who prefer samatha or shamatha, as I will use the terms interchangeably. Concentration practice involves working at a level that might be considered unusual, particularly when contrasted with the ordinary level training in morality. Training in morality is something nearly everyone can relate to, at least to some degree. Buddhism frames all the trainings in terms of the reduction of suffering and the liberation of mind. While reduction of suffering is easy for most people to relate to, liberation of mind in the grand classical sense is not. Training in concentration is only easy to relate to if you have attained to unusual states of consciousness, or at least have faith that they can be attained. Training in concentration has had thousands of pages dedicated to it, and there are probably thousands of concentration exercises. Some very commonly used objects of meditation are the breath, my personal favorite, our posture, a mantra or koan, a colored disc, an image, a candle flame, various visualized objects from simple to complex, feelings such as compassion, and even the experience of concentration itself. The object you choose should be one on which you would be happy to steady your mind. The essential point about meditation is this: to get anywhere in meditation, you need to be able to steady the mind and be present in the present. That's all there is to it, and it is largely a question of just doing it. There is an important shift that happens in people's practice when they really make the commitment to develop concentration and follow through with it. Until we do this, not much is likely to happen in our meditation practice. If you decide to do a concentration practice, stay on the chosen object like a dog with a bone until you have enough stability and skill such that the mind can rest on it effortlessly. Unfortunately, I saw the dog that lives here in this house that I live in was not really that focused on its bone and kept throwing it down and then picking it up later and playing with it for a little while and then throwing it down again. And I think the bone was too big for the dog. And so this is not a good example for me right now, to stay on the chosen object like a dog with a bone. But I understand what he's saying. So let me say here that there are various types of concentration, with the relevant distinction being continuous concentration versus moment-to-moment concentration. Both types develop concentration, but they feel different. Okay, the distinction between continuous concentration versus moment-to-moment concentration. Both types develop concentration, but they feel different. For this section, I'm talking about continuous concentration, which feels steady, smooth, and analog, rather than the concentration required to investigate individual sensations moment by moment that will be addressed when I discuss training in insight. The third training, wisdom. The first formal goal when training in continuous concentration is to attain what is called access concentration, meaning the ability to remain focused on your chosen object with relative ease to the exclusion of distractions. This is the basic attainment that allows you to access the higher stages of concentration and to begin the path of insight, which is the third training. So make it a priority to attain access concentration in your meditative practice. The first edition of this book said, quote, "You will know it when you have it." But I realized that I was very wrong regarding this. And I also underestimated the different standards people have for what they consider access concentration. Regardless, for the sake of discussion, when you can keep your attention on your object of meditation second after second, minute after minute, without letting it go to other objects, but before any interesting, blissful, unusually steady alteration of perception happens, that is what I call access concentration. To digress, before I continue, those who wish to define access concentration some other way, please do. Just realize that we may have a problem here with this being the first instance of what I call term wars, which highlight the fact that there really should be multiple qualifiers of a term or even multiple terms for various experiences. However, we have, for this whole range of accomplishments, only one term from the sanctified past. We end up with various factions struggling to control the meaning of that sanctified single term, in this case, access concentration. But also, as we will see, nearly all the other map terms as well. What generally happens is that instead of doing the intelligent thing, which is to recognize that we need more terms, and instead of using those, we mostly just battle it out in sectarian ways like dysfunctional territorial academics. For example, let's say that some guy whose initials are something like BAW and I want to define access concentration very differently. Perhaps we could have DMI, that's him, access concentration, and BAW, access concentration, to help distinguish the usages, as neither is likely to want to give up their use of the term access concentration. And yet each may be using it to describe states of mind that are significantly different. By using the qualifiers, we can at least realize which set of criteria are being used. However, just as I tend to loathe eponymous medicine, such as Colace fracture or Hansen's disease, I don't like eponymous meditation terms. Hopefully, by enough non-eponymous qualifiers related to things like depths of attainment, degrees of stillness, steadiness of focus, and duration, for those who like duration as a criterion, etc., we will have some idea of what we mean rather than warring over single terms that are clearly inadequate to describe the wide range of meditation territory in a way not bound up in individual practitioners and authors. I have this odd notion that Buddhists, who often pride themselves on their terminological sophistication, precision, and mental clarity, will come together from across the traditions and cultures, just like the chemists did back in the day, to systematically standardize the nomenclature for molecules, and as mathematicians did for mathematic notation, and do the same for meditative attainments. That, unfortunately, would require us all getting over ourselves and getting on with the work of bringing meditation into the 21st century. Don't hold your breath, as it were, and back to the instructions. Well, that's very interesting. That would imply that we would be moving meditation into a science, which it clearly is, and I believe it is in the East, at least in many circles in the East, in these monasteries and so on. Whereas here in the West, it is just a crapshoot, and it is a mystery. You can't get any type of good information even on the subject without doing a great deal of digging. So maybe there could be a council. Of course, these things are always corrupted, so there could be some way to do it, though, I guess. The essential formal concentration practice instructions are: pick an object, find a place to practice where you are as free from distractions as possible, pick a sustainable posture in which the spine is relatively straight. Doesn't matter so much, but for this training, it helps if it is somewhat comfortable. Don't put yourself into the lotus posture if your knees are going to start hurting after 30 seconds. And, I like this part because in many other meditation books I've read, they talk about the importance of your posture and you've got to do it a certain way. And I don't think that's really the crux of the matter. Anyway, focus your attention on the object as completely and consistently as possible for the duration of that practice period, allowing as few lapses in concentration as possible, and learn to stabilize all of your attention on that object. The more you practice, and the better your practice, the better you will become at concentrating. Find the balance of effort and steadiness that works for you. If your effort is too light, your mind will slide off the object. But if it is too tight, you will wind yourself up and be too tense to settle into steady concentration. Be kind to yourself when the mind wanders, returning it with minimal fuss to the object of concentration again and again. Practice again and again until you can attain access concentration. Tune in to anything smooth, flowing, and nice about what you are concentrating on and experiencing. While these 2 paragraphs may seem trite or sparse, they contain the formal instructions on how to begin training in concentration. More advice on the proper balance of mental factors is given shortly. Should you need someone to tell you how long to practice, start with 10 minutes a day and work up to an hour or 2 each day as your life allows. If you can learn to hold your attention completely on your chosen object for even 1 solid minute, you have some strong concentration skills. That said, you might have 10 or more hours a day to devote to practice. Don't let me hold you back. If you can go on retreat and do this 16 or more hours a day, even better, as you would be amazed how in just a few days of that sort of high dose, many people can get into very interesting meditation territory if they practice well. How long it will take you to develop access concentration depends on multiple factors, including practice conditions, your natural and cultivated concentration ability, the strength of your drive to succeed, and how much you practice. Okay, I think we're going to stop right there, and we will take over again tomorrow when we continue this chapter. So thanks for tuning in today, and have a great